have to do is click this one button, and we're live on YouTube. So we'll give it a couple minutes or a couple seconds, I guess, is really all it takes to warm itself up and get all the satellites linking up in outer space and blah, blah, blah. There we go, live on YouTube. So then I'm just going to share this out on Twitter. Twitter, press that button. It's more buttons to press on Twitter than it is to go live on a streaming platform. It's kind of crazy. Tweet.
Technology.
Right?
Which, at this point, I figure Brian's probably fairly familiar with. I don't think this is your first rodeo, is it?
No. I wouldn't call myself a veteran, but I'm not a rookie either, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we don't call ourselves veterans either.
273 episodes in. I don't know, man.
We're like the Joey Logano of podcasts. I don't know that we've had our windfall yet.
Well, he's got a championship. I don't know that we've got that either.
Well, no, I meant like 5 years in, we're still kind of wondering what the hell this thing is.
Yeah, we're still slicing bread.
Yeah. Still leaning on Mark Martin for that, that recommendation.
Oh, man. Let's see. I think that's everything. And so, yeah, we'll have some folks hop on here, and then we'll get started and everything. So we have a small but dedicated legion who likes to jump on and watch the live show. And, after that, we'll save it off and put it on iTunes and everything. Usually before the guest is even off the phone with us, I've got the thing up on iTunes. So just depending on what upload speeds look like and whatnot. But I was telling you earlier, Brian, we don't do any editing anymore. And so it's one of those like, okay, hit stop recording. Okay, upload. Let's see, we got Deb 2 hanging out. What's up, Deb?
Yep, in it to win it on this thing. We stopped editing, Brian, like at episode, I want to say 25 or 26. Rusty was like, dude, this is nonsense. We just got to get this right the first time.
Yeah, and just not even apologize for the mistakes anymore. We used to do that, mistakes we made.
We talked about the podcast, me and my buddy at work, and we'll probably talk about him some here, Justin Potter. We had one, and we edited and did this and video and all that, made like a show, and it is so much work. And just the most important part to what we're doing here, it doesn't really matter if it looks pretty or not, right? I mean, the conversation is going to be good. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's worked out for like 250 tries at it. So, I mean,
no, that'll be good.
There's been some snafus. I think I've had to pause the recording like twice, both due to like either internet issues or something happening, or I don't know. Maybe there was a fire in the house. No telling. Which actually I would probably just leave it live for that and just have everybody watch chaos.
Yeah.
But, well, gentlemen, we've got folks hanging out. It's a little bit past 9. It's about the time that we get this thing started. Brian, you ready to roll?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Awesome. Sherwin, you ready?
Let's do it.
So, Brian, I might disappear. I might not for a little bit. Zoom has been really good for us lately. But you might hear our theme song play or you might not. So you'll definitely hear me bring you on and all that stuff. So, with that, let's go ahead and get started. We are recording now. Welcome, y'all! That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mirror Racing Podcast, episode number 273. It's Tuesday, December 29th, 2020. It's our last show in 2020. Let's wrap this thing up. I'm Tailgate Mirror Rusty Wallace in the PTM Podcast Studio in Atlanta, Georgia. This podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. You go to patreon.com/PTM. Join the What You Drink Club for as little as $1 a month. Get that free koozie. Get some stickers. Best part is, every cent this year, we're once again donating to sponsoring drivers. I imagine we're just going to go ahead and do that again next year, as it turns out. So join the PTM Posse today. Be part of the sport you love. This week's show brought to you by our official sponsors at that $5 and up per month level. It's been 2 weeks. Let's see if I'm out of practice. Here we go. Aaron Bearden, Robert Keplinger, Coleman McClain, Eric Kepner, Ryan Kiefer, Patrick Curley, Jeff Brown, Brandon Crock, Kathy McDonald, Brandon Carl, Rika Porter, Julie Bosley, Eddie Greer, Third Younger Motorsports, Dave Mullins, Patrick Johnson, Brett Morris, Crystal Smoke, Fred Rosado, Chad Knapp, Stacey Coleman, Lisa Chinana, Rick Houston, Sarah Embari, Evan Roller, Matthew Biscuit, Harry Balzania, AJ Evangelista, Les Miller, and Jumpy Bob. Woo! All right, let's get this thing going. We'll get this thing going with the co-host of the PTM podcast studio from PTM, North Carolina, Andrew Sherwin, pregame engineer. What's up, dude?
Yeah, I ain't number 23, but I'm here.
Well, it's number 273, so if we just get rid of that 7 in the middle, we're right there. So, hey, what what you gonna do?
Fits.
Right. Well, joining us tonight for the first time on the show, Fabricator for Stewart Haas Racing, self-described mountaineer and charcuterie board connoisseur. On Twitter, at Brian_Murphy_. It's Brian Murphy. Brian, what's up?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm glad to finally do it.
Yeah, we've had a comedy of errors in trying to get you. I think, Sherwin, this was the one where I called you at like 6 p.m. and I went, dude, I'm going to be at work till like midnight. Yeah. I don't I think this isn't going to work out. I think that was Brian.
I think that was as well. And then we planned another date. Unfortunately, that was I think a few days after Martinsville, and I couldn't get myself to do it at that time. So.
I understand. We're not here to poke sore spots on the PTM podcast, unless we're trying to poke sore spots, but we typically don't. But what we do typically do, Brian, what are you drinking on tonight?
I got me a Busch Light, obviously.
Nice.
Got a whole case. I'm ready to go. We can be here all night long if you want me to.
My man.
On brand.
What sound does that make
when
you open that beer? What kind of sound is that?
Busch.
There you go. Busch. Love it. Sherwin, what you got for us?
I need me one of them flannel shirts. Oh, you know what? I really have taken to this Voodoo Ranger from New Belgium, kind of trying to stick with the North Carolina theme.
There you go.
So it's tasty.
Tasty taste. So I've got the PTM
and
special
you know me,
here.
always on the side, I've got a little bit of Fireball.
There you go.
Why not?
There you go. Are you sipping the Fireball? I don't think I've ever not had it in shot form. So, or like straight from the bottle.
Sip it. Yeah. Yeah, it's straight from the bottle's good too, but yeah, sipping.
On my hikes when it's cold and stuff, I bring a lot of Fireball. It's a good thing to warm you up.
There you go. Warm it right up. I've got the PTM special with the Beam and Cola here, but on deck, there might be some drama mid-show when I bust open the can of Guinness with the widget and everything else in it, and I'm going to try to pour it into the glass. I'll try to do it stealthily, but that's pretty much impossible with a Guinness, as it turns out.
Well, you'll have to do that with flair on screen so everybody knows why they're hearing the racket.
You got Murphy here. You got Murphy here. I want to see it.
Okay. I'm digging it. Brian, you, whether you say you are or not, you're a podcasting veteran yourself. Tell us about that podcast.
Yeah. First of all, it started at Stewart Haas. We have a pretty good group of guys that do a podcast there every week, and I've been on that a couple times. It's a great podcast, a good in-depth view on Stewart Haas Racing, the people there, the people in NASCAR. So that's kind of where I got a little introduction to being on them. And then me and a coworker, we kind of started a kind of an outdoor podcast. We did that for maybe half a year, but as you've said, the editing and things like that can be a pretty big toll on how that works. We did video, we did audio, we edited everything, and it just came down to how much time we had and our priorities. Really, work's our priorities, and we had other things we had to take care of than editing a podcast every week. So it is still on YouTube. It was Fixed Lines Podcast. We had a bunch of great people from Stewart Haas Racing on. A bunch of cool episodes with a bunch of good background, not only on myself and Potter, but Cheddar, the car chief on the 4. We had Jeff Schoaf, who's a tire changer and a painter at Stewart Haas. We have a bunch of good people on. So, it just it sucks we couldn't do it. There's too much stuff we got to take care of, but no, it's a lot of fun. I love it. I love doing this. I love talking to you guys. I love talking to whoever I can and talking to the fans, and this is great.
Yeah. We've been on other podcasts plenty of times, especially like Lap Traffic and several others along the way. And it was always like, oh man, I can just hop on and I don't have to like prepare or do anything. This is awesome. So we try to emulate that as much as we can by having a half-assed show sheet and nothing to really talk about, but a few little bullet points here and then freestyle the rest. So we try to make it as close to that as possible.
Yeah, I'm excited. This will be a good conversation.
Well, fellas, this is our last episode of the year. And then we'll be right back next year, next Tuesday, as it turns out. But this is our episode right after Christmas. So it was, 4 days ago now? And we've got whatever it is, 3 days till New Year's. But, the meaning of Christmas is to have all your family together and, get along, blah, 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 all that mess. And, Sherwin, I love your mom and dad. And Brian, I'm sure I would very much enjoy meeting your family. But I mean, let's talk about the loot, fellas. Like, let's get straight to business. Sherwin, what'd you get?
You know what? Ask Brian that question, and I'll show you what I got.
Okay.
That was important to me, and I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
There you go, Brian.
So I got this for myself.
Sound the siren.
The siren.
There you go.
Baby.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Brian, what was some of the highlights?
I got I almost could run too. My mom got me a lens for my camera. I've been trying to get in photography a lot lately. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's a 200 millimeter lens. It's going to take my photography to another level. I can get a lot closer, do a lot of different things. So I was pretty excited about that camera lens that I did get. But yeah, I got a lot of great stuff. But that's probably my favorite is that camera lens.
That's pretty cool. I have not gotten into photography. I'm one of those who all right, well, I'll go on vacation and I'll take 1,000 pictures, and at least one of those is going to look like I knew what I was doing just out of sheer luck. And so, I keep that one. I delete 999 of them, and then I say, hey, look at this cool place we went. Everybody's going, wow, that's amazing. How did you get that shot? I'm like, oh, well, you've been doing this so many years. It just comes naturally. So, but it's nothing more than spray and pray. I've seen a lot of your pictures. We'll talk about the mountaineering stuff here in a minute, but the especially right now along the AT and stuff, it's beautiful stuff that you're putting out on the Twitter there.
Actually, I can see in the camera right now. We went up to the mountain today. I think I got some windburn. We got some cheeks are a little red today.
Oh, nice. All right, Sherwin, you are up, sir.
Yeah. So, Mom finally figured out that her son is a race fan. So for the first time ever from my parents, I got something NASCAR related.
Oh.
And it's this.
There you go. Champion. Now you're rubbing it in a little bit.
I knew that would happen, and it's not supposed to be what it's about. But I was actually afraid to do that because I didn't want to rub it in because that's not what it's meant to be.
No.
I mean, hell, I'm flying tomorrow to Detroit to hang out with a Kevin Harvick fan all weekend, and his dog is named Harvick. So,
Chase Elliott, I was, I'm sure we might get into it in my past, but I worked in super late models a lot in getting into racing, and I followed Chase Elliott around the country working with Steve and Nassie, and Chase Elliott is. Man, he is unbelievable, man. He deserves it. He's a great driver. That's not going to be his last one either. And if there's anybody I'd love to lose to, it'd be Chase Elliott. So that's cool.
Well, you know what? With 7 road courses coming up, it's they're kind of putting it on his lap there, just about.
Well, you could probably see over Rusty's right shoulder there. Number 9 is kind of ingrained in our fandom of NASCAR. So it was a really natural progression to move from Casey over to Chase.
For two Atlanta boys.
Yeah, no.
I tell you what, though, both of us, and I won't even say stealth, but we've been very vocal about being, not just Tony fans. We were there at Bristol when he threw the helmet and everything, and I mean he's always been awesome. Clint Boyer is, what was it Junior said when hell parties, they raise Clint Boyer?
Yeah.
So definitely have some.
I want to hear some more of those stories on the Dale Jr. download about what happens when Clint wins a race and they come over to the ranch and go, and who wakes up where in the saloon.
I'll tell you what. I remember. God, what was his first? Martinsville was his first win with us, and so I had to. I didn't go to the party. I had to be at work the next day. Feels a little different, but the road guys, the 14 guys went to his place, and I remember they showed up after. Well, so that was the snow race, right? So that we raced on Monday.
Yep.
So they partied Monday night, but they had to be there Tuesday morning to get the car ready to load up on time. And those guys showed up at like 9 or 10 o'clock on Tuesday, and they were rough. I mean, they had a great time. So it's funny because that would probably be the worst person you would want a race to be pushed back a day, because the party is going to be there and you are going to have a good time, and you're going to have to be there on Tuesday. So yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, that's good. So, Sherwin, I got, for the Big Green Egg, I asked for and graciously received a cast iron grate for it. So that's been one of the missing pieces, if you will, in the whole grilling endeavor that you and I have partaken, is that, the steel grate is great, for like smoking and stuff, but you don't really get that deep sear line, on that. So I'm looking forward to trying out the cast iron grate and see how that works out. So that was one of the many pieces. Also got a gift certificate to the local, premium butcher, if you will. So gonna have some steaks to grill on the cast iron grate and everything. So very happy about all that, and gracious and blah, blah, blah. A lot of cooking stuff, matter of fact. I don't know. People heard that I like cooking. So
That's cool.
yeah. And speaking of, well, maybe it's not cooking necessarily, but we got to talk about it, Brian. You put, there's you only get so many characters and words in your Twitter profile, and one of them that you put was, charcuterie master or something like that. What's the charcuterie deal?
So I mean, I'm originally from Wisconsin, so obviously I just love cheese to death. Always eaten it. But when I met my now wife 2 weeks ago, we got married.
Oh, congrats! That's awesome.
Congrats.
She brought in the whole board deal. So now a couple times a week we'll sit down. We'll have we have a couple boards, different, whether it be wood or American flag or things like that, and we just get meats, cheeses, and come home. And some nights that's our dinners. We just get together and eat cheese and meat and design them in a good way. And I mean, it's just something. When we go out to dinner, we'll drink wine and we'll order a cheese board and things like that. So it's just a cool way to relax and rewind a little bit and eat some good food.
Yeah, we do the same thing with some frequency. And best part is like sitting down and wait until like 8 o'clock or so to eat, and put on a movie and eat on the charcuterie board for the next 2.5 hours. Probably eat about 10,000 calories doing so, and get about 16 beers deep. But
they're not healthy for you. But I mean, you can put anything you want, right? Like cheese, meat, vegetables. You can put like honey is one of my favorite additions lately. I never thought of honey, but putting honey on the cheese. God, I'm trying to think what
we
else.
do a lot of olives
pickles.
and and pickled
I like hot
stuff.
sauce.
Hot sauce, that's a good call. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
My
wife gets
they're like, what?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, my wife gets the dried apricots. Those are always like a nice little.
Oh, those are always good for farting.
Is that what? Maybe
that makes that more fun.
Well, maybe that explains a lot. I don't know.
But, I mean,
a lot of fiber in the old dried apricot.
We have people always ask, like, what do you put on it? And we're like, well, just what we like. It's not just meat and cheese, right? I mean, that is the definition of charcuterie is the meat and stuff. But for me, it's just like, what do you like to snack on? Put on a board, right? Put meat, cheese. If we've had candy on ours a couple times, you have vegetables. I mean, it's just it's fun to sit down, and then you can put it and make it cool and design and things like that. It's fun to put together. It's fun to eat, and it's fun to do.
Yeah, you know what's really good with cheese and crackers is a pear that is like not very ripe, like a little bit green, kind of hard still.
Okay.
Slice it real thin. Give
Mm.
that a shot. That's
There you
pretty
go.
good.
There you go. Yeah, we do apples sometimes, but pear sounds like a
Apple.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pear.
I don't know the last time I've bought a pear. So bought a pair of socks. Heyo. Sorry, Dad.
I think the last time I ate a pear, I think was off a tree in Michigan of all places, where I'm going tomorrow.
There you
It's
go.
not good stuff. Yeah.
You better. So now you have to get a pair, Sherwin, and relive the memory. So
Well, food is a big part of the program. Not to derail this conversation, but that's a big part of what's going on when I get up to Michigan.
there you go. There you go. Brian, I got all excited when I also saw in that Twitter profile Mountaineer, and we talked earlier. You're posting a lot of AT and all the hiking that you're doing in there. I get excited because in this closet right there are 7 backpacks between me and the wife. We own 7, which I would say is too many, but we actually use all of them. So there's like 2 backpacks, 2 flash packs that you roll up and put in the backpacks. Then you have your day packs when you don't want to take the whole backpack. So that's 6 right there. And then we have a waterproof. So when we go kayaking and stuff. So, that all makes sense until, you reflect again and go, well, we have 7 backpacks for 2 people. That's interesting. But yeah, what's the mountaineering deal?
So early in my cup career, when I got to Stewart Haas Racing, when I started going on the road, one of my coworkers, my best friend, Justin Potter, he's a plate leader at Stewart Haas. So they would send 2 people to the racetrack every week. They would send a plate leader or 2 plate leaders and someone to help them to do the fabrication, all of that. And his mother was a big photographer. She's now passed, but so it's kind of made him want to become a photographer. And early on, he would always ask me, do you want to go on a hike? Do you want to go here? We would go to Phoenix. Do you want to go to Camelback, which a lot of NASCAR people, that's a big place to go to when we go to Phoenix is Camelback Mountain. And I'd be like, no, I don't want to. No, I'm going to go to dinner. I'm going to have some beers. I'm going to go to bed, early. I'm not going to go hike. That sounds terrible. And so this went on a couple races, right? And then I think it was it must have been August 2017, we were headed to Bristol. And normally that's one race actually, the Fall Bristol, the night race we fly to, because they don't want us driving back at night if we don't have to and things like that. So, but he wanted to drive. So I was like, no, I'll ride with you. But we get halfway and he says, do you want to go hiking? And I'm like, so this is why you brought me. You're going to force me. You're going to trick me to go hiking. So we got to about the Linville Gorge in North Carolina, and he said, let's go up to Hawksbill. I said, all right. I'm wearing Vans. I'm wearing jeans. I mean, no hiking gear at all. And it's kind of sprinkling and things like that. And so we hike up. We get to the top, and I'm blown away. I mean, man, this is cool, right? Beautiful views. The gorge, Linville Gorge, is probably one of the most underrated areas in the eastern United States. I say that, and that's being nice. Like, I think it is probably the most beautiful place in the eastern United States. So then it went from there, right? So then he was like, well, do you want to go on this hike? I'm like, yes. But then someone said, well, I know a really hard hike, but you could do it, but it's got good views. So we did this hard hike, and when we got done with the super hard hike, I was like, man, I love just not only the views, but the mental challenge, the physical challenge, all of that. And so that's where it kind of took off. It turned into not just something to just do to go see views, because you could ride down the Blue Ridge Parkway and see some pretty good views.
Yep.
But it was also the challenge mentally and physically. And it just stemmed off to the point where 6 months after that first hike, I had ran into a couple, and they were going to do the Art Loeb which is in Western North Carolina. It's 36 miles, about 9,000 feet elevation. It's a really long hike, and I've never done a multi-day hike. I asked them if I could go. So I had to buy a bunch of gear. Like it starts like you're talking about, where you end up with this closet full of stuff. But that's where I started, and so I went on this hike, finished it, and again, it was like, man, I can't believe that was like, there were points where I was about to cry because it was so hard, and just finishing that hike was unbelievable. It felt so good to do something I didn't think I could do. And about 5 months after that, I had ran into, well, actually it was about 3 months after that, I ran into a girl, and she was had just come back from Mount Rainier, and she was telling me about it, all the training she did, showing me pictures. And I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? I would love to stand on top of that mountain. And I remember going to work and telling everybody, like, I think I want to do Mount Rainier. And they're like, well, you just did your first multi-day hike a couple days ago, right? And 2 months later, in August, I signed up to do Rainier. And from there on, it turned into this incredible obsession, where it wasn't just hiking. It wasn't just buying the right gear. It was, how do I get myself physically prepared, mentally prepared to do something that might be one of the hardest things I ever do in my life, right?
Yeah.
And at this time, I had met my wife and things like that. So it drove her nuts because I wouldn't eat. I would eat. I would eat healthy, right? So less charcuterie boards, less wine, things like that. And so Stewart Haas Racing, Jeff Schoaf, one of the guys that was on our podcast, he's a painter, but he's also kind of like a fitness coach. And so he took me in. We would work out 4 days a week in the Stewart Haas training facility with their trainers, with their equipment, with the vet staff, with Novant Health. We have our own people come in and stretch us, do everything. We have an amazing facility at Stewart Haas Racing for our pit crews.
Yeah.
And so we get to take advantage of that, right? So I had this whole group of people helping me prepare to do this climb, and for a year, hiked. I think that year I did 370 miles, about 89,000 feet of elevation, and got prepared and went to my first trip alone. Right? Have you guys ever done a trip alone where you have nobody with you?
I have not. Actually,
no, I haven't done that either.
Yeah, so this is my first trip where I packed. So I packed 3 duffel bags. I had a 110-liter bag. I had my Summit bag. Yeah, and then I had another duffel bag, my duffel bag I take on our team plane, and rolled up to the airport. I think it was like $360 each way for all the weight and
goodness.
Carried. So I was there I went for 2 weeks to like the Seattle area, Mount Rainier area, and and got off the plane. Getting there wasn't the problem. When I got off the plane in Seattle and I had to carry all those bags and find my own little cart, right, and find the rental car place and do this all by yourself. It sounds easy just when you're kind of doing. I don't know, maybe most people are used to it, but it was nerve-wracking going on a trip by myself. I remember getting in the rental car. It was kind of hazy that day. I wanted to see Mount Rainier when we were flying in, because I see all those pictures of how beautiful that mountain is when you're flying in, and seeing what I was about to do, right? And it was so hazy and so rainy, I couldn't see it.
Oh no.
So I'm like, so get my rental car, I'm driving, it's about an hour and a half away, couldn't see nothing. So get to my I rented a little room from right at the base of the mountain, base of the park entrance. I rented a room at this little hotel. It was awesome. Had a little convenience store. They made coffee. It's perfect. Got myself situated. Woke up the next morning, packed all my stuff, went to the ranger station, and it was still foggy, so I couldn't see anything. And I'm like, man, all I want to do is just see how big this mountain is, right?
Yeah.
I get my permit. And so my plan was to just climb up to Camp Muir, which is halfway, and spend a couple days there and just kind of test myself, get my equipment, go there, park, start the hike up. Beautiful hike up. The the Muir snowfield is you need spikes, but I mean, there's a lot of day hikers that go up there. I saw kids going up there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really cool. Like that would be such an awesome experience for a kid. I got up there, and then finally, as soon as I got halfway up, I broke through the clouds and I could see it. And I was like, because you're already halfway up, it's like, that's not that bad. So that'll come back. But so I get up to Camp Muir, and I spent a couple days in they got a couple huts up there, which was really nice. I didn't have to put a tent out on the ice. I got to talk to a lot of people coming in and out, a lot of people waking up at 10 or 11 in the middle of the night to get their summit pushed. So seeing them go through their procedures, seeing them go through their emotional wars, I guess you'd call it, for lack of a better word, and doing that. And then also seeing those people come back after a day of that climb from Camp Muir up to the summit of Rainier was really cool. Also, it was nerve-wracking, but also, what exactly am I getting into? How good a shape are those people in? How good a shape am I in? One thing I did do is, so I brought my deal to boil water, and it says like 20 boils per canister, right? So I'm like, well, I can chop ice. I'll get 20 boils. That's plenty for 2 days. I was going to stay up there. Well, I didn't think that it takes so much more energy to boil the ice.
Oh yeah, than water.
Boil the water.
Yeah.
So I only brought one canister. Well, after like 3 or 4 boils, I was out.
Oh no.
So, yeah. So good lesson there. So I had actually come down a day early. I went down, and I spent a couple days hiking around Mount Rainier. Absolutely unbelievable place. Probably my favorite place in the United States. That is an incredible national park to go see. There's so much to see, so much to do for any level of outdoor enthusiast. It's absolutely beautiful.
That's awesome. We did probably about 5 years ago. We did Portland, Seattle, and then all the mountains in between, and spent a couple days at Rainier. We went up to, I think it's called Panorama Point, and had a similar, probably stayed at the same hotel you're talking about. It was like the last place on Earth that still has payphones because they don't have cell signal there, and so. We hiked up to there, and it was a similar experience where it was all foggy and everything, and then we were actually we had sat there for probably half an hour, and the the fog just wasn't going away, and so we started to hike back down, and probably 15 minutes in our hike down, it started to clear out, and we look at each other and we're like, we got to go back up, like we got to go back up, and so we went back up, and it was I agree, probably one of the most prettiest places on Earth, for that matter, that we've been, and that was incredible. So that was one of the ones that really got us deep into hiking. I think we started really, I would say, one of our first hikes. It was well before we were married. We might have been engaged, but I'm not sure. And we went on this Alaskan cruise, which we call the geriatric cruise, right? Because it's all these old people on the Alaskan cruise, and so we found out that, okay, well, if you quote unquote hike, it's barely a hike, but it's like 2 miles, but all the geriatrics, they're not going to hike the 2 miles. So you're stuck with 5,000 people on this boat. I say stuck. I had a good time. I like cruises just fine, but all you have to do is walk 2 miles over there, and you see these amazing views with nobody else there. And so had a blast doing that. And then, we did Yellowstone, and I think that was really one of the big solidifying ones where, you can go up to the railing where everybody is, and people have their little hover rounds and going up to the railing and whatnot and seeing these views. Well, if you just hike half a mile that way, and it's barely a hike again at all, but now there are no railings. You can just, you can just fall if that's, if that's your thing. So that really got us into it. And we did, like I said, that portion of Rainier, and we were actually following a group that was starting their summit, and the way that they pace themselves, we have taken that on in our later and much harder hikes to really understand, here's the pacing that you need. And so we'll be going up mountains now where, we're doing this one pace, and I mean, it's tortoise and hare stuff, right? You'll see these people just fly by you, And I think we were in Colorado at one point, and this guy who flew by us before was literally puking on the side of the trail. And we walked back by him and not even breathing heavy, like, hey, guy, you might want to tone it down just a hair.
So when I went up to Camp Muir my first time by myself, just to test myself, I ran up it like I normally do, probably like you did, probably like everybody does when they're first learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ran up. And when I got to Camp Muir, I was that guy, right? Not puking, but I was gassed. I was in bad shape. So I went through International Mountain Guides. They're known all around the world. They have, I think, the most Everest summits as a guide service.
Oh, wow.
A fantastic guide service. And that was the first thing. Even when you got to Paradise, like you said, where you park, starting there was a pace that you went with. You didn't break that pace. You didn't go faster. You didn't go slower. Whether you were not tired, whether you were tired, you kept up that pace the whole time. And same thing, like you said, when we got to Camp Muir after following our guides, I felt like $1 million. I felt so good, right? Like you could instantly see why having a pace, why stopping, why eating every hour, why drinking the fluids that you need to drink, and why you need to do that, how it plays out throughout the course of a hike or a summit attempt.
Yeah. Kim Ross says, hike up Half Dome in Yosemite. Kim, I've done that. That was the second hardest hike I've ever done. But I would do Yosemite again. Yosemite or Half Dome was incredible, and I'm kind of, I don't know if you call it daredevil or whatever you call it, but I did sit and hang my legs over the edge of that, whatever they call it, the devil's diving board thing, and people up top, what is he doing? What is he doing? My wife's going, that's just him. He's a wacko. Just let him do it. I'm like, I gotta have this. So I've got a great shot of me with my legs hanging over that. Oh man.
Good old Yosemite.
Yeah.
With the fault going right through the middle of the park. That's pretty neat. That's kind of eerie. And you look down into that fault and you're like, that's like an earthquake just sort of waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Why is Half Dome a half dome? Because earthquakes and stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Brian, have you gone up there? Out to Yosemite?
I have been to Yosemite, but I was a kid. I have not done Half Dome, so we kind of drove through really quick. But yeah, I have not given Yosemite a good trip like it deserves. So.
Half Dome's amazing, and that hike, like you said, it's another one of those just thrilling hikes. Not only because the achievement factor, but there's some amazing views all the way up. You hike up 2 waterfalls. And that's how you start the trail. And then you kind of go through this wooded area, and then you go to this subdome that's really difficult, and you have to worry about your pacing. And then at the very end is that the ropes on either side that you have to use to go up. And
I've seen those. They look pretty gnarly.
I was very impressed with my wife because she claims to be afraid of heights. And I've told her she's not allowed to say that anymore because I've got pictures of her standing on the edge of 5,000-foot cliffs. But we were sitting there, and we got up to what they call subdome just before the rope course thing, and there's these people that are turning around, or like there's people crying like I can't do it, and like just totally losing their mind, and we're sitting there eating sandwiches, and I'm kind of looking over my wife like, okay, I hope she's got this, I hope we're okay, and she's. She finished her sandwich and she's like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm like, all right, let's do this. Yes, I'm in. All right. This is sweet. So,
awesome.
Yeah, my thing is like the treacherous ones. There's Angel's Landing and Zion. That one.
Angel's Landing.
Yeah. That one. I've got some awesome video of that one with, 1,500-foot drops on either side of a 3-foot wide course. So those are wild. But man, I could sit here and talk about hiking stuff forever. I did say second hardest hike. I will tell you the hardest hike I've ever been on, and one that I will never do again, but totally enjoyed. I didn't like, I don't regret it, but Mount Fuji in Japan is the hardest hike that I've ever done. That's ridiculous.
Awesome. Yeah.
It is, by the end of it, the last mile, I'll say, is nothing but a stair step, and each stair is about up to your thigh. And so by the end of it, you're just throwing your leg up, trying to get up that thing.
Stairs are brutal.
Yeah, that one was gnarly. Anyway, You know what? We've been chatting about that forever. How about this? Let's start with the fabrication stuff. So we hear fabricator, right? And we hear that took it back to the shop, or after the race winner will say, all the guys back in the shop want to thank them and everything, and it feels like you're one of those guys. You're the guy in the shop. What what is it that the fabricator? There's the engine guys, there's the paint stuff you talked about, there's a chassis, whatever. But what is a fabricator doing on a day-to-day basis?
So when I first started at Stewart Haas Racing, or in my early career, it was in the fabrication side. I quickly learned that's where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. When I first went to Stewart Haas Racing, I became a body hanger. So there's all different kinds of fabrication. There's body hanging, there's finish fab, and then there's heavy fab, chassis fab. All those things obviously are specialized. You have chassis fabrication, which is chassis. Tubing slingers is what I like to call them. They put the tubing together, they weld out, got heavy fab, a lot of the heavier stuff. You have oil tanks, a lot of brackets, a lot of pre-body stuff, body hangers. It's where you put the body on. You put all that stuff together, all the body parts, you make them fit the templates, finish fab, windows, crush panels, ductwork. I mean, everything. So there's so many parts and pieces to these cars that are not manufactured. There's still this sport is still involves a lot of hand built pieces, a lot of specialized people to put these things together. And so myself now, I'm not so much at the shop doing those things. I'm more on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I say that because those guys at the shop, they work very hard. I know our body fab guys, a lot of years from right now, when they get back from Christmas to mid-June, they are 6 to 5. They work tons of hours getting these cars together, putting them together, making them not only as fast as we could possibly think we can make them, but then when NASCAR comes out a rule or something happens, or we find a different piece that performs better, they have to go back and change all those things or figure out how to implement that change. So those guys at the shop, they don't travel, but they work so hard. They work more hours. There's like I said, there's so many parts and pieces to these cars that are hand built. We have so many things that come in on rolls of metal or sheets of metal. It's beyond any other type of motorsport in the world, really.
What is it like? What's your day to day as a fabricator at Stewart Haas? What's maybe if we start maybe like right now, off season? Is there a lot going on? Is there nothing going on? Is it just trying to think of things?
Well, for right now, it's right now it's starting to pick up, right? So when the season ends, teams want to get the ball rolling on the next season. The problem is NASCAR, after the championship race, I want to say Homestead, but now it's Phoenix. Which is good. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I have to get myself to be able to say that. They sit down, they have a meeting, they figure out, listen, what are our goals for 2021? What are the teams doing that we don't like? What can we do to improve the product on the racetrack? And how can we make everybody, how can we make things a little more fair? And so they will sit down, have this meeting, work out a couple weeks, and then they always come out with a bunch of new rules. There were a couple rules this year, one being they have a new template for the rear sides. So there's a lot of, I don't want to get too crazy out of here, but when the Hawkeye came out, a lot of people think, well, this is going to control the teams more. And really the template system was plus or minus 70 thousandths. Well, when the Hawkeye came out, it was plus or minus 150, gave you 300. There was nothing controlling shapes. So really the game exploded into this big, how creative can you be? So they're kind of trying to bring that all back in. And so you have more templates coming back in. And so they came out with these rear side templates. There's a bunch of downforce, a bunch of side force that's going to be lost. It'll be interesting to see how each manufacturer works with these changes. Each manufacturer, Toyota struggled last year, right?
Yeah.
Well, was Ford or Chevy, did we make so many gains in this area that maybe a natural gold surface Toyota will perform better than a modified Ford or Chevy? I don't know if that makes sense. If we have to follow these rules, will Toyota run better than a Chevy or Ford? So it's going to be interesting to see how these rules play out. But as to get back to your question, we've just now got these rules. We've just now started building our road course cars for the Clash. Those have actually rolled off the production line, the body hanging line, the week before we went to Christmas. We'll start on the Speedway cars. Those are pretty cut and dry. Not that they're not important, but there's a lot less gains, I think, to be made in that area. That I think the Speedway side has been maxed out for a couple of years, where you might have a couple small gains you can get, but you're not going to reinvent the wheel when it comes to Speedway racing. So once those come out, then we get back to the more road course cars, right? With the schedule change. So it's always good. Like I said, teams want to jump ahead, but it's also good that you don't jump ahead, because if we would have jumped ahead, then maybe we would have built intermediate cars that we no longer needed at that point. But right now the shop is it's been closed down. It's closed down this week. We shut down. Stewart House Racing shut down last Thursday, and we don't go back to the 4th. So everybody gets to go home, spend time with their families. It's really cool that they do that. I know some teams don't do that. I know a lot of smaller teams can't do that. So to be able to work for a team that is not only able but willing to shut the shop down and let everybody take a breather and enjoy the holidays is a pretty cool thing.
Well, there's probably a lot of value in that. And, I mean, that's why we all, those of us that work in the menial world of other types of jobs, take the vacation and just use it as a, let me get a breather. I mean, I love the fact that I can just go away for lunch for an hour and just get me a breather.
Yeah. It's good. It's good because, like, I know a lot of places I've been. I'm not even gonna lie. I've seen at Stewart House Racing where it's like they put up weeks where, like, you can't take off. Or, I mean, if you had to, if you're getting married, right? But, like, please don't take off this month, this week, or this section. Like, we need our guys to go full throttle, especially in January or February or August before the playoffs, things like that. Like, so it's not like, you're given time off. You have your days off, but I mean, if you want to win races, you want to be part of this deal. I mean, you're not always going to be able to take off when you want to. So for them to be able to reward everybody with a week and a half off during the holidays, they give a great amount of time off during Thanksgiving as well. And July, 4th of July, we usually get a couple of days off too. So that's worked in. We know we get those days, and we have to sacrifice when we need to win races.
So I thought it was interesting how you were talking about the manufacturer stuff a bit there. And I think there might be a conceived notion, or whatever you want to call it, that these cars are all the same, and you slap a bow tie on it or a circle on it, and it makes it different. What is that influence from the manufacturer that makes it so different to where you're talking about it in terms of what you're having to do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, so first of all, like, NASCAR comes out and they want their cars to look. People say it. I hear all the time, all these cars don't look like road cars. They look pretty close, in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel. They're not road cars. We're not racing road cars. There are series that race road cars. If you want to watch those series, give them a try, because they race road cars. We're not racing road cars. We're not going to race road cars anytime soon. So I hate to break it to you. But so when a manufacturer sits down, NASCAR and the manufacturer wants to represent their car correctly, wants them to, that's why we do this. We want people to buy those cars. We want people to love Fords. We want people to buy Mustangs. That's the point of this. We want them to look like Mustangs, but we also want them to perform this way. So when a manufacturer comes in, NASCAR sets a box of downforce, drag, and you have to meet that box, right? So you can't be out of that box with drag or downforce. You can't have too much downforce and no drag. You have to meet a certain area of what they consider competition friendly, I guess. So you just can't go out there and design a car that is going to be
bringing IndyCar, F1 car.
Right. So that's a part of designing an actual car is when we designed the Mustang, or Ford designed the Mustang, when all the teams came together. You got, you go and you sit in a wind tunnel with Ford, and you work on little areas. You work on the headlights. You work on the tail. You work on all these little pieces to design a car that not just looks like a car, but performs good, but also meets NASCAR's box, like I said, the drag steel. So that goes way farther than people realize. That when we designed the Mustang, there was hours in the wind tunnel with NASCAR, other manufacturers, making sure they were happy, making sure that the car was designed correctly, making sure that everything was fair. So you just can't, people think you just go out and design a car and, Toyota got a new car, they're going to be better. Well, that's not exactly how that works. You got to meet that box. But so you design a car, you also look at is how do the teams now manipulate this car? So there are still a bunch of areas where teams work with. A lot of people say that there isn't any innovation in NASCAR anymore because of the rules and this and that. There is right now probably the past 4 years, probably more innovation in the sport since before the COT.
Wow.
Minus, actually, I'd come back and say after the parts freeze of last year that maybe that went away, but until the parts freeze, we were wide open. We could do a lot of things. There was a lot of metal shaping. The Hawkeye, like I said, the Hawkeye controls. You have a gold surface that you submit to NASCAR, which is what I'm talking about, and then they give you plus or minus 150 thousandths off that gold surface. Well, the Hawkeye controls in and out, right? It doesn't control shape. It doesn't control whether you're affecting sharpness, whether you're affecting the actual appearance of it. It just controls whether or not you are within that tolerance. So if you want to, let's say, sharpen up a corner, if you want to erase a body line, whether it be just metal or sanding on some carbon or things like that. There's so many areas where the Hawkeye doesn't pick up the manipulation that the teams have in these bodies. And that's where NASCAR is reeling it in, like I said. But there's so many places where the teams can manipulate these bodies. And so you kind of work in when you design a car on how you can down the road make this car perform better. Now, as they come out with templates and reel the teams back in, then you get back to how good was the actual car that you presented to NASCAR. If you had to race a stock body tomorrow, who would have the best body? And that's kind of where we're getting to now is how good are these bodies going to be without any manipulation?
What are the things that you're looking at, like on race day? So you go to the track, and besides, helping out where help's needed, but obviously you're there for a reason.
Okay.
And, and what are the things that you're looking at and that you're thinking, we should, I don't know, shave this corner by 1,000th or something like that?
Well, like I said, the Hawkeye gives you 300 thousandths of an inch to play with, which is over a quarter inch. So whether or not a wheel opening is bigger or smaller, whether or not it's flared out more, even down to which now you can't do that. But when the Hawkeye originally came out, teams were making like their own, really modifying their own body parts. So it was down to, does this car, if you put a Ford Fusion next to another Ford Fusion in 2018, those cars didn't look the same. Like we were back to like some pretty Jurassic days of NASCAR in 2018. So which was fun. It was a lot of fun. You could do a bunch of stuff, and NASCAR's reeled that in, like I said. But so you look at shapes, you look at uh, placements of body pieces. You can look at shapes of quarter panels. You can look at how, like I said, wheel opening, how in or out a wheel opening is, how high the hood is on the window. You can look at. I mean, I can see. It's hard to explain because when I look at a car and I see that somebody has modified the roof and
Yep.
it meets all of NASCAR standards, I can see that and say, man, that roof's got a lot of crown in it, or those quarter panels are really long, or I mean, there's a lot of things that you can look at. The placement of NACA ducts, you can look at even things down to the how they cut their decals, where their driver mirrors are. All these things are designed aerodynamically, and there's not one piece on a race car that is not there for a purpose. It's not just there. It's not just a mirror to see. There is a aerodynamic reason why that particular mirror is in that particular location and is designed in that particular way. So,
I love that. That is so cool. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that, like, the sort of nerddom creeped in, I don't know, call it 15, 20 years ago in the NASCAR is paying attention to that level of detail.
Yeah.
And Rusty being in the software industry, it's a little bit different, but it's kind of still the same in terms of how you write the most efficient code to accomplish the same task. That's what you're doing with the race car.
Absolutely.
And I have to constantly remind the guys in the industry that I work in is, we might pump plastic and we might produce a product that you touch that is made of plastic.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing we do around where I work is we move air. We move way more air than we move plastic, because the air is what makes everything go.
Yeah. There was Daniel Suarez put a tweet out today where he was sitting in his car, right? And just by that tweet, you can look on the outside of the window, and he's got like 1/4-inch spacers on every single window mount around the window. And that's an RCR car. So instantly it's like, well, why do you not just bolt your window down flush? What is the 1/4-inch spacers around the entire window? Why do you have to space your window up? Little things like that, right? A little tweet that had nothing to do with anything, and now I can see that they spaced their window up a 1/4-inch. Now, whether it matters or not, I don't know, but
you notice. Yeah, but you notice.
I'm gonna bring it up.
It feels like in the Matrix, right? All I see is the green text, and he's like, I see blonde, brunette, redhead. You're seeing.
Yeah, file it away in old Duder's head in case, for whatever reason, they're making 10 more points of downforce or 10 less points of drag just because they spaced that window net that way.
Yeah. Man, that's so funny. How much of that? Well, you're not allowed to answer this question. This is rhetorical. How much of that corporate espionage, Sherwin, is going on? Like, somebody tweets a photo of just sitting in the car to fans, and then now all the engineers are on top of it.
No, I can answer that question. That's a big deal. Honestly, when I get on the Stewart Haas plane after a race, the first thing I do is I get on my phone and I go through Twitter and I look at all the tweets that come out from every race team. And as soon as I don't even look at the picture, I just go through Twitter, screenshot, see a car, screenshot, screenshot, so that when I lose signal on the plane, I can just go back through on all my screenshots and then go through each picture, each pit crew post. It's one thing that it sucks, because that's one bad thing about this sport is we should be able to show fans things, right? Like, the important part of our sport is the fans getting to show this, putting a good show, the transparency, showing what we do, the technology we have, how cool things are. These cars, like, people think they're just a bunch of shitbox cars driving around, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're actually as advanced as an F1 car. We use the same tools, the same scanners, this is an extremely involved sport. So to not be able to show fans things because of competition wise. The fact that I'm on a plane looking at Twitter to look for things is it's good, right? But it also sucks because I wish we could show fans more, but you know it's difficult because a single picture from a media person on a pit stop can give away a lot of secrets.
Yeah, well, I think that's the
amazing.
reason why Rusty and I decided we wanted to do this as a hobby, is to try to talk to as many different people from the racing community as possible. Is because at heart we're just nerds. I mean, hashtag nerd neck.
There you
I
go.
mean, we're a couple rednecks from Atlanta, but we went to Georgia Tech, and I studied.
That's one of my big things the last couple of years is especially like 4 years ago. I remember telling everybody that this sport needs to celebrate and show our technology, celebrate and show what we do in all this. And a lot of that came back instantly a couple of years ago was fans don't care about technology. They don't care about what the teams are doing, how they build the cars. And honestly, the last couple of years, that has changed massively.
I was going to say, bull spit. I love this stuff.
There's a lot of people like Bozzy on Twitter. I don't know if you follow him.
I do. Yep, I interact with him quite a bit.
He has came a long way because he shares technology, and I think he has actually caused a lot of other people, a lot of other I would even say some of our televisors to show more technology, because just the fact that he has exploded the way he has just by sharing technology and sharing car information and pictures and things like that has exposed how hungry our fans are to see exactly what we do and how advanced this sport is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, somebody handed me a book in 2007 or 2008. It was called The Physics of NASCAR, written by a professor from Texas A&M. And I thought, well, hell, I'm going to learn a lot from this. And I read the whole damn book in like 2 days, and I was like, all this did was affirm all the things that I already knew, which means I must be paying attention.
Right. And that book is probably like 0.00001 of like just the tip of the iceberg. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's not to give me any credit. It's just
right.
understanding how the balance of the car works and how you change the balance of a car.
Yeah. Yeah,
but I mean, it's a great book for anybody that's got the mind for it. It's worth the read. It's fast.
And just for people to be able to understand why you put rounds in a jack screw, or what the track bar does, or maybe putting tape on the front. Or I haven't read the book, so I don't know where it went. But even just describing simple things helps certain situations in a race when they say, "Oh, this happened or that happened." It helps for a fan to I read that, this is why, or understand what's going on even more.
Yeah, well, Rusty and I we always text back and forth during races when we're not watching them together, but we used to text back and forth because we'd listen to Casey Kane's radio, and we'd hear what he was complaining about in the car and why it wasn't going fast as he wanted it to go.
Oh, yeah, and play crew chief.
Yeah, and if it wasn't track bar, like if it was left side wedge, we're like, oh, that car is way out of shape for his driving style. Like, you knew that it was going to be a bad day just because they went to the left side of the car and monkeyed with the jack bolt over there, because that just at that time, that's just not the way he drove cars.
Yeah. So looking forward to 2021 and beyond, how much time have you spent on next gen stuff? Is that like top of mind right now, or is that kind of like, all right, well, we'll deal with that in 6 months?
No, I think each manufacturer has their own well, I mean, first
Whoosh.
of all,
I heard it.
NASCAR was on a schedule, right? So it's a complicated question because the COVID deal really messed up that whole schedule. Whether it was a good schedule or not, I'm not going to argue, but it messed up that schedule. And so now, the teams are developing their cars, the manufacturers are developing their cars, and there's still so much to learn on that in my role in 95% of the roles at Stewart Haas Racing or probably any team, that's not even on our minds. It's so still over there that we can't even put any, as far as the day-to-day guys, right? The fabricators, the racers, the road guys, even kind of the drivers, really. We're concentrated on 2021. We know the next gen car is coming, but that doesn't even register on my mind as far as competition wise.
Gotcha. How about talking about 2021? What's the vibe in the shop on Chase Briscoe?
Good. I mean, the kid. What more can you ask for with an upcoming driver, right?
Yeah.
That he's done an amazing job in Xfinity. He's an absolute race car driver. He's hard nosed. He's ready to go. He's willing to talk. He's willing to come in. He's willing to say hi. He gives you all the right feelings where you want to work hard. You want to help this kid succeed beyond just the normal wanting to win races. We're really excited. I'm really excited to have him. And I cannot wait to see him in one of our cup cars. I can't wait to see him and Johnny or whoever ends up being his crew chief work together. I think we have a great lineup of crew chiefs. So I'm excited to see him and our teams paired together and what they can do. I think he should win a race or 2 or 3 this year for sure.
Dang, that is
wow.
so
That's
cool.
awesome.
I love it.
I'm excited.
I love it. Yeah, the excitement that brings too. Young blood and fresh meat and whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's neat and definitely a lot of eyeballs on that. We've got
also our other driver too. We got a lot of our Xfinity driver. Who is it?
I don't know either. I wish I could help you here, but I can do an internet search real quick.
Yeah, I'm on it here with Xfinity Series. Oh, come on, let me click.
This is the fun part of the show.
Your
this
website
is what makes this fun. This is what makes it real.
Right.
Yeah, Riley Herbst.
Is it Riley Herbst?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what he does. There's a lot of people that give him some flack, but he, a lot of people gave Joe Logano flack. He left, Joe Gibbs, and everybody was like, well, if he couldn't win at Joe Gibbs, then he can't win. Well, that's not true. There's a lot of factors that go into a race team, into how a driver gels, into how a car is prepared, and how that car works with a particular driver. So I'm really excited to have Riley Herbst. I'm really excited to see how that team goes from not just Briscoe, but Briscoe to a driver that hasn't been involved with us at all. So people are going to be surprised how well he does this year as well.
Yeah, and it looks like he's bringing Monster over, so Monster's willing to cross over OEMs, which is cool. That's always good for NASCAR.
Worked with Monster. They're, a great company to work with. They're all in, right? I mean, there ain't nothing but wanting to win there. So, yeah, it's great to have Riley, Monster, and everybody come in and I think we have the best Xfinity team out there right now. And I don't know if you can even argue with that, honestly. So, I mean, we've had the last 3 years, if you look at our results, if you look at how our Cup team has done to help that organization, the Xfinity organization, which those guys, that's all body stuff. Nobody can take credit for any of that. That is all Xfinity side. But the way they utilize our resources and our information and take that little small shop, that small F1 shop really, it's small, and take that shop and just go out there and dominate the way they have the last 3 years is absolutely incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
How much would you say, in just a few words, has Kevin Harvick helped that Xfinity side get up to speed, so to speak?
I really don't know. I mean, I know he talks to those drivers a lot. I know So we've had Cole and we have Chase, and they're both very open-minded. They listen. I mean, they come and ask questions to our drivers. They come and ask questions to Harvick, and I feel like Harvick's a driver that is very willing to explain to somebody that wants to learn. Right? I mean, he's not going to come chase you down to help you. That's not what that's not what you should do, anyways. But I've seen our drivers come and talk to him a lot during the weekend and ask him for information, and they have long conversations. Um, I would say he has played a good role, but again, I mean, in my opinion, those Cole and Briscoe are some great drivers, and I think that Xfinity team is absolutely incredible. And I'm not going to take away anything from that team or those drivers. Even, I mean, some people said Cole maybe underperformed this year, but I don't know, the Cup Series is so hard that.
He won a damn race. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Regardless of, I mean, people can talk about restarts all they want,
Yeah.
but the rules are what they are, and
Absolutely.
you race the car given the conditions that you're offered, and he won the damn race. That's it.
Him and Mike Shiplet, which Shiplet was strategically one of the best on pit road this year. If you go David A. Smith and on Twitter and look at his analytics, I mean, Shiplet was.
I pay a lot of attention to David. He's got good stuff.
Absolutely, and Shiplet was one of the best on pit road, and you know, and Cole capitalized when he had to, and also Cole's not, you know, you see a lot of these rookies go out there and just wreck stuff and cause issues, and Cole's pretty methodical. He's not going to go out there and put himself in a bad situation. He's going to learn and work on his craft, and I think this year you're going to see a new Cole, and yeah, to get back to the Xfinity deal, I put a lot of the success on that team on that team and those drivers, and I'm not ever going to take anything away from that, because I know how hard they work, and I know how separated the workforce is at Stewart-Haas Racing between, probably for a good reason, that the Cup deal, they work on our stuff. The Xfinity deal, they work on their stuff. And those guys have performed unbelievably, and that's all because of them.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope that nobody gets the idea that I was undermining that team by saying,
right,
you know, asking about Kevin Harvick and whether or not he helped them get to where they are at. But Kevin seems like Kevin seems like he's been a pretty good coach.
Oh, and he is a great coach, but he's also, you know, we've had a driver maybe that wouldn't come to him and then complain about not getting help. And it's like, listen, if you want to learn, you got to go ask him and talk to him. He's not going to come babysit you. You know what I mean?
You know what? I've dealt with that at work, actually. And not to dive too deep, I'll make this brief, but I've had that. I'm dealing with that with one of my direct reports. Yeah. And it's like, hey, man, you got to tell me when you need help. Like, I'm not going to look over your shoulder. Like, if you're in a hole, you got to say, hey, man, get a shovel. We got a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, fellas, and Brian, with 46 days until the Daytona 500, did me saying 46 days, is that like, oh crap, I've got a lot of work to do, or is it like, yeah, you know, we're pretty much set right now and we're going to cruise in and feel it out? I mean, SHR obviously had a lot of success last year with stuff and running the same car and everything. You know, is it like, all right, we're fill it up again, man?
No, there's a lot of work to do for sure. I mean, no matter how much time they give us, we're going to fill it up with maximizing our cars, right? Mm-hmm. So it does help that, unlike a normal year, we don't have to build 18 to 20 speedway cars, right? So you build in the roster not the roster, but the chassis limitations has helped that, but also not having the duels on a road course helps, and things like that. We'll build two speedway cars per team, so that's only, it's only 8 cars opposed to the 18 or 20 we normally build. You'll build a couple road course cars. You know, we have 3 to build. And then, so it's a little bit dialed down of off season, a little bit, but I don't want to make people think that the effort will be less, because it won't be. Yeah. It's just ever since the chassis limits that we were put under, and also with COVID, right? Like there's a lot more races that are show up and race. So you need less
Right.
backup cars. You need less backup cars, things like that. So you can be a lot more detail oriented in this day and age in NASCAR right now with COVID.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt you, Rusty.
Go ahead.
With the fact that the Clash is now going to be on the road course, is this basically a glorified test amongst the drivers that probably have a chance to win a road course race? Like, is this like we should probably use this as a test session in a lot of ways, because we're going to be racing road courses all season long now.
So whenever anybody asks me that, I always laugh because it's like, I don't think I've ever been part of a race team that has ever gone into a race that should have been a test, like should have, and not gone just balls out to win.
Yeah.
So like, if there's a trophy, we ain't testing nothing. We're showing up with a car that we think should win, right? Like, if we're testing, it's CFD, it's wind tunnel, it's simulation. That's where we test. Very rarely do I ever see a team actually say, you know what, this race doesn't matter. I don't care about this trophy. I don't care about the money. I don't care about waxing anybody else's ass. I just, you know what I mean? Like we show up and we want to win every race. So that's how I see it. It kind of sucks for the teams that aren't part of the Clash. I will say that's kind of a weird deal, but given where we're at, right? Like, if you can't just make the Clash a speedway race now, because now you have to ask the teams to build more speedway cars. We don't have any more speedway cars. Like, teams don't have any more speedway cars. You put chassis limits on us, so we have built speedway cars to our chassis limits, you know. So to just say, well, let's just make it all a speedway race now because of this, there's not enough cars to do it. You can't expect teams to go down there with two cars and run the Clash, the duels, and the 500 on two cars, because we've seen that before. I mean, we wreck stuff all the time. You ain't coming back with two good cars usually.
So ask Carl Edwards.
Yeah, you know,
when he wrecked 4 cars before the Daytona 500 even started.
Yeah, so,
he was in one of not Danica, but he was in somebody else's car by the time the thing was over with.
Yeah. So I think the first year Danica was there, she wrecked a bunch, and she actually, I think, used one of the 14's cars or something. But yeah, like I said, so a lot, you know, it sucks that these teams, you know, it's turned into a test for the teams that earned it, and that a points race will be 2 weeks later or a week later, and we will have a race there, and half the teams won't be able to race there. But I don't know what else you do with chassis wise, with support, things like that. I don't know how you would get around what we have already planned. But no, the off seasons were, like I said, it's a little bit easier, but it's also a little bit more detail oriented. And I think that's how, since COVID hit, that's how the whole situation has been, that we've had to build less cars, but they've had to been better cars. There's a lot more engineering. There's a lot more sim. There's a lot more computer-based things. There's a lot more tweaking, making sure each car is absolutely perfect, because once you hit the racetrack, that's not practice. That's not qualifying. You're racing.
So yeah, that's a very interesting point. So I guess the question I would want to ask is, do you think NASCAR made the decision to move the Clash to the road course, not necessarily because we're going to run 7 road courses next year, but because to give you relief on the chassis restriction?
No, this was all done before. This was announced before COVID, announced before. I think it was just to do something different, shake up the Clash. The Clash last year was kind of a wreck fest. The last couple of years, it's been kind of meh. So I think if it were to work out the way it was supposed to have a road course race at the Daytona and that be a Clash the first time, that would have been big flair, right? We've already seen what's happened at that road course, and whether or not you like it or I like it or whatever, I'm not going to sit here and argue whether it was a good race or not. But that flare, those sparks have already been flown, right? So,
True.
so I think that was the initial thought process behind that was to add a little flair to it. And honestly, I think last year when they initially announced the chassis mandate, anyone that showed up with, I'm not gonna put my name on this, but I'm 99% sure anybody that showed up with their Clash car, it did not count against their chassis limit. So they worked with the teams as well.
So I think that's where I was headed with that. So yeah, no,
but
that's
this year with the chassis limit, teams have already built chassis for the speedway cars. You can't just like flip a switch and have speedway cars, right? Now that we're a month and a half or two before the race, so we don't. It's not like even if that would go against the chassis. Even if NASCAR was like, listen, we're going to run the speedway just be to help the competition wise. We don't even have the chassis. We only built a couple speedway cars per team. We couldn't even show up and run the speedway race.
Yeah.
interesting. You think that maybe they're, now that they own IMSA and they're kind of taking some pride in that piece of the puzzle, the Daytona and the 24 hours of Rolex. Do you think that this is them trying to bleed some of that crowd into watching stock car racing?
I mean, absolutely. I think the road course racing in NASCAR is some of the best road course racing in the world, and
I love that.
I would love to hear people argue against this. I mean, you look at Andy Lally, one of the most well-rounded racers in the entire world. He's raced everything. He's raced everywhere, and he says over and over again, a NASCAR stock car is the hardest car to drive. And when you look at these cars going around the racetrack and the abuse they are put up to in these races, I mean, it's an amazing show, and these cars are super difficult to drive around a road course. So the fact that we're adding more road courses is amazing. I think we started as a circle track series. I think we should predominantly be a circle track series, but to have 7, 8, 9, 10 road courses, a third of the schedule, would be great, not just for NASCAR, but I mean, you're gonna grab attention worldwide because these races are some of the best product of motorsport you will ever see.
Well, that and the fact that we've seen the infiltration over the years that Rusty and I have watched, that these like super, road course ringers, as they've been called. Of course, none of them has ever won a cup race, so keep that in mind, everybody. But they get in there, and there aren't any really, really top-notch rides for them to get into.
Right.
Right.
And sometimes they can make the difference between a car that normally finishes 25th and they finish 18th with it. But they're not going to the top 12 or 15 cup road course racers. They're just not going to do it.
That's a lot to do with how good the teams have developed their stuff as well, and how good these cup drivers have become at road course driving. I mean, these drivers don't just drive around circles, and I always used to like hate that saying, right? But that is a thing, right?
Yeah.
So they're not just doing it; they're actually like testing on simulators. They're driving in other series. They're doing source racing. That these guys aren't just, teams aren't just brushing these weekends off their shoulders, especially now. This is a big deal. These road courses races mean a lot, and to have both the teams putting in as much effort as they are now and the drivers putting as much effort, you're not going to see, in my opinion, in the Cup Series, a road course ringer come in. And I have heart. I mean, I love Andy Lally. He's a good guy. He's a good friend of mine, but I don't see him sitting in a lower tier Cup car and competing with any bit of the top Cup teams. So
no.
And you can see that in Xfinity. That's a different deal. But when it comes to the Cup Series, these teams are just too well prepared. They got too much information, and these drivers they have every resource they could imagine, other than being able to go out and actually test a Cup car on a road course. That they're just going to be too well prepared to just brush shoulders off.
Yeah. So this whole thing started with me asking about 46 days until the Daytona 500, and I think I did want to revisit for a moment that you had said kind of nonchalantly, "Oh no, we're all good. We just got to build about 20 cars." And I had to laugh because I'm like, "Yeah, give me about 150 years. I'll take care of that for you too." So
we have the limit right now. It's 16 cars per team. So I mean, you times that by 4, plus you have backup. So you can have, chassis ready just in case you demolish one, you can bring one in. So, but our guys have gotten so good at just, putting cars together. You can have a chassis ready. Once the chassis hits a body plate within 5 days, it can have a car fully bodied. And we have a book, like a Bible, that's huge worth of measurements. It's all roam arm now. I don't know if you ever know what a roam arm is. It's kind of like a GPS unit. We measure everything down to 1,000th. Our body guys are given plus or minus 15 thousandths off our build sheet. These cars are built with roam arms, and they do this, and they can have entire car off the plate within 5 days with a full body on it. So they're professionals. They're amazing workers. They can do it fast and they can do it precise.
Well, Brian,
go ahead, Rusty.
I was going to say, it's about time to close this out, but we're going to have you back on to preach to us from that Bible at some point, because that's really cool. This has been an absolute blast. Sherwin, what do you think?
Yeah, we can go and cut off the audio. Maybe we can do some after dark.
yeah, absolutely. But so with that, Brian, why don't you close us out? Tell us where the folks can find you and what's coming up next for you.
You can find me on Twitter at Brian_Murphy_ or Instagram at _Brian_Murphy_. But yeah, it's like I said, get back to the shop on Monday. We're gonna start putting cars through our own Hawkeye, finalizing speedway cars, finalizing road course cars, and really starting the grind. The grind's going to be big the next month. So follow me along. I'm not just racing, like I said, the hiking. I like to post a lot of pictures of everything I do. So it's been an absolute pleasure to be on here, though. Thank you.
We've got a lot more to talk through, and we will do that. We will do a portion of that here in a moment in the After Dark show on YouTube. But even after that, as long as we haven't offended you greatly, would really appreciate having you on again.
Anytime. You let me know, and as long as Martinsville doesn't happen again, I'll be here.
Yeah, and Rusty doesn't have some 12-hour shift at work. Sherwin, why don't you tell the folks where they can find us and what we're doing next?
Oh, yeah, you can find us at PETM Podcast on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. We have a website, petmpodcast.com, and on Patreon. That's a fun place to be over there. We're doing some fun stuff with racers. And you can find me at Andrew L. Sherwin on Instagram and at Pregame Engineer on Twitter.
And as always, I'm Rusty Wallace at Tailgate Mayor. It's been great having y'all. Happy New Year, everybody. And drink that Busch Light. As it were. We can't wait to talk to y'all in 2021. Let's get this 2020 over with. Done. Peace out. Enjoyed it. We'll talk to y'all later.
Phew.
There we go. That's a wrap. Brian, we're still live on YouTube. Just in case you spill any company secrets or anything, we're hanging out in the After Dark portion at this point. Feel free to stay as long as you like or leave or whatever, but all I'm going to be doing is making sure this audio gets out to all the places.
I forgot to mention on the audio portion, and I know he probably won't end up watching the video, but our friend CJ Wooliver over at NASCAR on Fox said to say hey, because he's a big Kevin Harvick fan.
Awesome. Good.
That's right.
Thank you. I love the support. I love the fans that show up, and it always means a lot to hear people come and cheer for us, so.
Yeah, well, it's cool. Yeah.
We are.
It makes it more fun.
We are inundated with Harvick and SHR fans.
This is true. This is true. I think if you polled the people that pay the most attention to what we're doing, Harvick is probably at the top of the list because we've got KHI fan Kathleen, we've got Brandon, we've got CJ, and who else we got? We got Evan Stark.
Oh, Evan, right front tire.
Yeah, we got lots of Harvick fans running around this
good
joint.
guy to cheer for.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Maybe we can creep all of them on over to Chase once Harvick decides to hang it up.
Oh man!
I mean, they got to go somewhere, right? No. You know what? Maybe they'll become Chase Briscoe fans.
There we go. See, yeah, Briscoe will be good. Or who knows who's going to take over that 4? That is a thing.
True.
It is a thing. Is there a pipeline there that not? I mean, you don't have to tell inside NASCAR secrets, but
that's one of my favorite things is whenever we start losing a driver, people always say, "Oh, who do you hear?" And I have heard so many rumors, like when Danica, was leaving. I heard so many drivers, and they all made sense. Everybody had a good reason why this driver was coming to us, and I believed them all. And then it was Eric, right? I mean, that's well. And I was like, well, 90% of the rumors I heard, even through the shop, weren't true. And then now, the whole Boyer thing, is Boyer staying? Is Boyer leaving? Who's coming? Again, it went through the whole process of all these rumors. And so I got to the point where it's like, I don't even keep up with the rumors because I've heard so many that it's, and they all make sense. People come up with good reasons why, you'll be driving the Stewart Haas car. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just like, man, I can't keep up with it. Whoever ends up in the car ends up in the car, and I'm gonna, everybody's gonna work as hard as they can for that driver, regardless. So
is any of your work? And I had this in the show sheet in one of the 10 bullet points. So as you can see, we had 10 bullet points, and we made it through maybe 8 or so. So the kind of way that we roll, but is there differences from your perspective in your day to day, from driver to driver, how you might fabricate or set up something or anything?
So up until 2019, when they came out with this new aero package, right? So minus the low downforce package, the sport shifted dramatically from how much downforce can we put on these cars? How can we make these cars? There was we went from 1,500 pounds of downforce on these cars to 3,200 pounds of downforce. So it went from
holy shit.
Yeah, it went from how can we get as much downforce on these cars to
now we can drive upside down.
Honestly, no. But honestly, initially in 2019, it was some teams were we still need as much downforce. Some teams were we don't need any downforce. Some teams. So that's where you saw the first half of 2019 as kind of just craziness. You saw teams win that you didn't think would win. You saw teams doing good you didn't think were going to do good. You saw we struggled, right? I mean, we went from 2018 to 2019, and we didn't have the season we were hoping for after 2018. And I think a lot of that came down to teams learning that you have to build a car not just for the driver. What does the driver need? Does he like downforce? Does he not like downforce? Can he drive a car with no downforce? But also, what does each track need specifically? And I'm talking down to 20 or 30 pounds of downforce between certain tracks. Do we put a roof hatch in a car that we wouldn't normally put in a car for aero reasons? Do you run the deck lid up? Do you run the deck lid down? Do you run the splitter up? Do you run the splitter down? I mean, there's so many ways now to tune these cars in, a lot like you see in IndyCar, a lot like you see in sports cars where teams are trimmed out, teams have downforce. It's just we can't change a lot of our things throughout a run. There's a lot less mechanical or a lot less electronical changes. It's all when we build a car, that's the way it is. So to answer your question, yeah, there's a lot of changes between crew chiefs and drivers and how they build the race cars and how they feel each track, what they need at each track.
So let me ask you this. So I think you probably fall in the same category as Rusty and I do in that in our professional lives, we are our own worst critics. And you said you were not impressed with the way SHR performed as a team, but you still had the driver who won the most races.
Well, no, we were impressed in 2018. 2019, we were, we didn't perform like we wanted to in 2019.
Oh, 19. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I tuned you out on that.
2018, I thought we ran great. Things were great. All 4 cars won. And then 2019, we go with this new package, and you walk into 2019 thinking, we got everything under control, and this new package and the Mustang, both of those together,
changed the game a little bit.
changed it. So,
All right. So now that we're really inside baseball / inside NASCAR, from your perspective, from what you saw, everything that we've ever heard and everything that we've ever watched suggests that one of the greatest wheelmen in the sport is Kurt Busch. What did Kurt Busch bring to Stewart-Haas from your perspective?
Kurt Busch is probably my absolute favorite driver I worked for. Kurt Busch is incredibly intelligent. He knows a lot about a race car. So, you look at drivers like Ryan Newman, he's an engineer, right? He went to college. He did all these things. Kurt Busch is very involved in the setup. I have heard him during practice, there's moments where drivers get mad and crew chiefs get mad, but I've heard him come over, you get a driver that gets mad and says, hey, it's loose and just fix it. Kurt Busch will come over and say, put this spring in, put this bar in, do this, these rounds, do that, and I will go out there and let me just see how that feels. So whether or not it's right or wrong, the fact that he knows what springs, which bar that he wants or wants to try is incredible to me, that he is that involved in the process of the race car. Plus, the guy is, I don't know many other drivers other than him that is going to, at least right or wrong, go out there and put out as much heart as he does. He will drive until his hands fall off for you, right? So that's an incredible thing to have as a driver. The other thing he did do, which I have never seen any other driver do, is what he did for his workers, what he did for the guys at Stewart-Haas Racing. He would come around a couple times a year, at least, if not every other month, walk through the shop to each body plate, shake everybody's hand, ask them how they're doing, how's your family doing, tell me about what you're doing on the car. Every win, he bought us a signed flag. He bought us trophies. There wasn't a more thankful person I've ever worked for in this sport than Kurt Busch.
I think that's what we have grown to know about him, and I'm glad to hear it firsthand from someone who's actually seen it take place. And I hope the people that end up watching all this YouTube can soak that in, because there's a lot of people that I still haven't overcome whatever it is they don't like about him. But man, in terms, he's Hall of Fame already.
Oh, yeah.
We already know that. I'm glad he's still racing, because we still get to talk about how, who's the best wheelman in NASCAR? Well, it might still be Kurt Busch, because there's nobody that's ever finished second at Sonoma in a shit box built by Phoenix Racing.
He's an incredible driver, and honestly, this year during COVID, and this didn't change my opinion on Kurt really any. He was, again, probably I was devastated when he left. I would love for him to come back. Obviously, I would love to work for him again. But people always make fun of how mad he gets when he loses a race, right? Well, so I was running a NASCAR heat race, and with one to go, I thought it was the end of the race, and I got up out of the seat, and it was my best race, finishing second. Well, I crashed in the wall, finished dead last. And I threw so many pillows in my house because I was so pissed that, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, this is, you know what I mean? Like I screwed up on a NASCAR heat race and I'm throwing pillows. Like, could you imagine if this race actually made any kind of sense? Like, so, I mean, these guys put a lot of effort in. They have a lot of passion. So,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that and I've told this story before on this podcast. I was in the garage when Casey went over to Levine and at Michigan, and thanks to the friend that I'm going to visit tomorrow, and we had media passes, so we're just wandering around doing that sort of stuff, and Casey jumps out of the car and he is mad as a hornet. And there was a guy that was kind of in our posse, if you want to say it that way, a guy that races on the side, but that's not his professional job. And his brother was actually the team manager for Levine Racing at the time. And he said, "We ain't got a driver problem. We got a shitty ass car." Because Casey jumped out and threw his earbuds. I don't want anything to do with this car. This is bullshit.
It sucks. I mean, it's like I said, it's difficult for these drivers to put everything they can and do what they. I mean, it is a dangerous sport. Like, you go out there and you're on your adrenaline, and they come in, you expect these guys to act proper, or you know what I mean. It's. Could you imagine if, like, an NFL player, if you had to go out there and every time they came off a play and then like critique them, like, oh, what let's do this, or what do you think of that, or what's going on there? If an NFL player has a bad play, they deal with their team. They don't have broadcasters, they don't have fans, they don't have all these people going up and just right in their face instantly. So, it's kind of a different deal. You kind of roll with just, I don't know. I've never worked for a driver that I just didn't like, that didn't really like us. So, a lot of people we've had, even Danica. I mean, damn, I got a tattoo of her logo on my foot because one night, I loved working for her too. And people say she was, not very nice, but I loved working for her. And Kyle Busch.
Pretty intense, right? Yeah. Like our podcast.
Yeah. Kyle Busch. I worked for his truck team for 3 or 4 years before I went to Stewart-Haas. Same thing. Guy came in, awesome guy, gave you whatever you needed. I mean, would talk to you, do anything. So these people they're normal people like us. The little tantrums you see after they wreck hard is totally warranted. And so, you just roll with it. And
well, I see it, and so between the two of us, Rusty and I, like I tend to be the more volatile one. I'm the one that, my amplitude of the sinusoid is much higher than Rusty's. He tends to be a little bit flatter, which is good because we balance each other out that way. But I mean, I came into work steaming fucking pissed last Monday because I got some shit on a weekend that I was on call from somebody that should have been a subordinate at the time, that's not a big deal. It's not a power trip for me, but I was like, I have a boss that I said the F word probably 25 times in a 10-minute meeting at 7:15 in the morning. And he's just like, yep. Okay. Okay. Yep. Got it. You seem to be very passionate about what just happened. And I'm like, yes. He just happens to be from Wisconsin too, by the way.
I think that's the thing too, is there's a lot of people in our sport that understand how passionate everybody is. I think there's a lot of people in business or whatever if you're a passionate person, people see that. And like if something like what you just said happened, most people don't take that as a negative, right? They see somebody that is passionate, that want something good to happen, and you kind of just calm the person down or talk to them, and you know what I mean. I get the same way a lot. I have exploded all like so it happens to everybody. It's just nice when you have people that kind of work that help you. I mean, that's part of the team is you work with that and then you build off it. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm very thankful for the team that I work with because we have a closed door meeting. Anything in this room goes. You can say whatever you want,
Yeah.
and it doesn't leave this room. And it is very it relieves a lot of pressure, like that internal pressure, not like pressure to perform, but pressure like I'm mad. I need to talk to somebody.
Sure. And that's part of having a good team, having a good, somebody you work for, like allowing people to do that. There's a lot of people that walk around eggshells all day long and aren't allowed to do things like that. And I don't think that's a good thing. Like you need to be able to express yourself, freely. So,
Yeah. I mean, we're all working in innovation in some respect, shape, or form. You're doing it in a lot more public scale than we are, being in a professional sport like race cars. But it does matter because we're all the same. We're all passionate about what it is, the thing that we do. And if you don't allow the personality to escape when it's bad, you'll never get the personality escape when it's good.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
the innovation, the willingness to go, you know what? Let's just try something. I think this might work.
Yeah.
You don't get that if it's eggshells. If everybody's tiptoeing around going, I'm afraid I might say the wrong thing. I mean, like, all the way down to I'll tell you a funny story. We've become ultra sensitive to the doors that you're not supposed to use for external and internal travel within our facility. And they put one in my office. My office is, I call it the annex because there's 4 of us in there and we got a big room. It's probably bigger than my apartment. And they put I said, we're not putting the sticker back on the door because one of them stickers are like you hit it and it says void, like you've broken some kind of seal. We don't have an emergency door there. So it's been all over our, do you use Teams or anything similar to that within the SHR community? Yeah. So we use Teams, and then the night shift guys, they got to check all their boxes, right? They've been given instructions about what they should be looking at. And the door in my annex, it didn't have a sticker on it for like a week and a half because I said, we're not putting a sticker back on that door until somebody tells me I'm getting fired if we don't. And then, while I was gone over Christmas holidays, somebody decided, yep, we're going to put the sticker back on the door. I walked in Monday morning and they said, they put the sticker back on the door. I said, give me a goddamn razor knife right now. And I just went in there and I put my cut glove on because safety first. And I cut that sumbitch. And I'm like, I'm just waiting to see what happens when somebody figures out that I did that.
Yeah. I can't wait to. We'll have to bring that up next time, or you're gonna have to at least have to text me and let me know how that goes.
Yeah,
yeah, right.
I will. I mean, to me, it's funny because, to me, there's a certain amount of volatility that is required to produce, innovation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, how do we get from what is status quo to what is peak performance? And it's not just us going, hey, everybody's nice. You can't it can't be that.
No, no, you can't. Not at all.
There's got to be some yelling, some people getting pissed off, and then you go, okay, all right, let's calm down. And
you're 100% right. Yeah,
gentlemen, I'm going to shut this thing down on the YouTube. So, YouTubers, appreciate you hanging.